Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Community Engagement Commission meeting Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, 6:00 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call commissioners. Aaron Asmuth.
President.
Summer Darrow. Here. Bill Norman.
Here.
Mark Sava will be here later in the evening. And I'd like to ask, I know that Cynthia Gamboni contacted me. She asked that she be excused. Arlene Fisher-Meyer is absent. So I'd like to have someone make a motion to excuse Cynthia Gamboni and just excuse Mark for the first portion of the meeting, and he will.
I so move.
Okay, here a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Approvals on the agenda. Are there any corrections or minor modifications to the agenda?
Robin, I'd like to move that we move the public comments portion of our meeting to just prior to the current item 8 on our agenda.
Okay. We'll make a motion. Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Ellen says yes.
Okay, motion carries. We move number 4, public comments, to number 8, not at all. The minutes of the February 21st, 2024 meeting. Any corrections on there? Okay, are they approved? Make a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the minutes from our February 21st, 2024 meeting. As there.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. So tonight we have a special presentation. I want to introduce Lisa Key as the Planning Director of Liberty Lake. Lisa has a monumental task for the update of the comprehensive plan. And so we hope that we can help to support her in this endeavor because public participation is a large part of the comprehensive plan. With that, Lisa, thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Commission, for entertaining me tonight. I'm going to wait while David gets my presentation up. You want me to do that?
I don't want to mess this thing up.
You get for 1 moment.
This is 100% self-services.
So you want to share screen?
Okay.
All right, go there. Ready, go and share. And then we want to. And begin. So Robin hit the nail on the head. We have a monumental task before us to update our, can you hear me? Do the periodic comprehensive planning update and have it ready for adoption by, have it actually adopted by June of 2026. I wanted to back up a little bit because you guys, unlike the Planning Commission who lived in this document, wanted to give you a little bit of, oops, I might go on to turn this on. There we go.
You mean click?
This doesn't work. Because that's just our YouTube. Yes, next slide, please. Is it?
It's not moving.
No,
We got this.
just click it down.
What time is rehearsal, by the way?
You know, we got this set up at 4 o'clock because we were concerned about the technical difficulties, but Anyhow, all right. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of an overview of the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act in Washington is the state law that requires us to do comprehensive planning. It was adopted in 1990 with the intent to really manage growth, direct population growth to urban areas. So we would reduce sprawl, and to make sure that we were planning, for housing, transportation, utilities, and capital facilities all in at the same time in support of specifically our anticipated population growth. So trying to comprehensively plan for our community. Also was intended to protect rural resources, farmlands, critical and shoreline areas, and that affects more the county than it does us. We don't have any shorelines in our city. It's critical because it establishes the community's vision for itself, but it also serves as a foundation for the city's development code and actually our capital facilities plan and the investments that we as a city make in our community. As Robin pointed out, there's a huge emphasis on community engagement throughout the process. And the phrase that we like to use as planners is early and continuous public engagement, critical to the process. And that's why I'm here before you guys today, to just share with you what our comp plan update entails this time. It's going to be a pretty significant lift because there were so many amendments to the Growth Management Act in the last several years. Big ones include housing, and providing a framework to meet the housing needs for all income levels, very low, low, moderate income levels, as well as emergency beds, etc. And it was pretty prescriptive how the state legislature got into that. We also have to really look at our development regulations, and we will be looking at urban growth areas. That's the areas where cities can annex into. But we're first, in order to expand any urban growth areas, we first have to demonstrate that there's not enough available urban land within the county to support the population and housing needs that we have going into the future. And so this is just a map of the state, and the state's divided up into different timeframes for adoption of your comprehensive plan. And as I said, we're in the 2026 timeframe, but the timeframe is established by state law. The comprehensive plan has a number of mandatory elements, including land use, housing, a capital facilities plan. Now, interestingly, it only has to be a 6-year capital facilities plan, and this year we're intending to do a full-blown 20-year capital facilities plan. It's going to be particularly important for our city because we do expect to hit build out within that 20 years. And so as you kind of come into the home stretch, it's very, very important that you have adequately provided for all the facilities that are necessary for the community to realize its vision. And so we also have chapters on utilities, transportation, economic development. It's interesting. Parks and Rec is a requirement, but since it's not the planning's not funded, you don't have to do a chapter on it, but you still have to include it in capital facilities plan. In other words, you still have to do it. And then one of the new elements, which is probably the hugest lift, has to do with climate change and resiliency. So this climate planning piece is a big piece of it. Now we just got, the state actually just gave us a grant for $255,000 to start the first half of that process. We have another $245,000 coming our way with the second half and for implementation. So $500,000, which is going to help us because there's a lot of technical components to it. It's also going to require a lot of research and a lot of engagement. So this is the plan that's before you. I'm not even expecting you to necessarily look at it. Just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. We have things listed by elements, and some of the elements are really just things that we have to do to get it done. The first piece and the last piece, are really staff driven, but the city and county coordination, which is a huge lift for staff right now. And will actually drive with what our population allocation is. And that will drive all of the other elements in this. And the last one, adoption process. And I needed to include those because they were the sideboards. They were the sideboards that in order to, I had to work from backwards to get to figure out when we needed to accomplish what. So here are the work program elements that are identified here, and I've highlighted the ones that I think really require a significant amount of either community engagement. In some cases, it's just going to be education. It's just going to be education because we don't have lots of choices in what we are allocated. But helping the community understand what that is, and then kind of steering them to provide us with input on how they would like to achieve that, I think is going to be really, really critical, particularly on the housing piece. So public and tribal engagement, we always do a public engagement plan. One of the things that changed is that with the Growth Management Act is now we have to include tribal. Well, tell you what, that doesn't really change too much. At our level, it does have the potential to change the structure for the county and city coordination piece of it. But in terms of our plan, we already always engage the tribe in all of our land use reviews, all of our SEQA reviews, everything. They are always at the table, virtually, but they're at the table. Population, housing, and community services, probably the biggest lift of the entire comp plan, with possible exception of climate resiliency, but we have money to hire a consultant to do the heavy lifting on at least the technical side of it. Transportation is also going to be a big one, because what happens with the population, housing, and community services is really going to drive our transportation plan. And so that's also going to be a very important element as we will be updating our network analysis and looking at the transportation improvements that are going to be necessary to really support our build out population here in the city of Liberty Lake. Parks, recreation, and open space is another big lift. So the Parks, recreation, and open space plan was done in 2014. It really is less of a plan and more of a really process that they went through, and they did a great job of documenting that process. Problem is the data is old, it's not very relevant anymore, and we really do need to have a plan for the build out of our parks and rec system, and so and our open space system. And one of the things that we're looking at, this is a big one. We're looking at hiring a consultant next year, and we're actually looking to ask the Parks and Arts Commission to actually drive that process. Now, I want to say this because this is really important. The Growth Management Act really vests the responsibility for recommendations related to the comp plan on the Planning Commission. So everything that comes out of it has to funnel through them. But that piece we're going to hand off to the Parks and Arts Commission to then bring back and engage the Planning Commission at the end of the process. So, and you're going to see your name as stakeholder groups in a lot of these, because we also see you being very involved in that process and really helping with the engaging the public and getting the input that we need to make this a truly effective public participation plan. Again, the capital facilities plan, going from a 6-year capital facilities plan to really do a 20-year. We will every year be updating the 6-year plan, but the 20-year gives you the long-range vision for what you need to do. And one of the things I want to say about that too is that in each of these elements that we're working on, where there are capital facilities involved, we will be doing that piece within that chapter and then filtering it to the 20-year plan. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get to it. The city and county coordination. It's important to understand that the basically the population target, population allocation to all the communities, and the housing needs allocation, which is driven by that population. The state gives the county their targets, and then it has to be allocated among all the jurisdictions that are planning. The city's at the table, but at the end of the day, the ultimate decision has to be adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. And that number is what we need to plan to. Again, it's also that group that kind of looks at the issue of urban growth area and if we can be justified. There are countywide planning policies related to land capacity analysis, related to climate resiliency, related to a number of these things that are going to influence us. And we aren't an island. So it's important that we're considering these impacts in light of others in our jurisdiction. Transportation is a piece where we're not an island. We need to be engaging STA, SRTC, and our adjoining jurisdictions. As I said, this is something that's going to go on throughout the process. Right now, this is a particularly heavy lift because the first piece of this is that population allocation. And in order to figure out which communities can do what, we now have to start our land capacity analysis and figure out how much capacity we have. The population allocation does drive the housing needs, and we're going to also be working with that with the group. The way it works is that there's a structure for this, but at the end of the day, it's the decision of the Board of County Commissioners. We have a planning technical advisory committee. That's all the planners and all the municipalities getting together, and we're doing all the heavy lifting. And then we take our technical memos to the steering committee of elected officials. So the mayor sits on that. And some of the larger jurisdictions have several elected officials that sit on that. And the steering committee of elected officials basically make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners has to actually adopt all these policies and make all these decisions. So the first element that we want to talk about, and it's going to be overarching for all of these, is public and tribal engagement. And we will start with we need to start working on a public and tribal engagement plan. But throughout the process, we're going to continue to identify community partners and stakeholders and do outreach to them. We'll be implementing this throughout the process. And at the end of the process, we also have to prepare a final engagement plan summary. So we have to really, and that becomes an appendix to the comprehensive plan. It tells how we engaged and what we heard from our public. So a really important piece of the equation. And this is something that we would really love your help in putting together. And in fact, I think that at the end, I'll talk about maybe some next steps. But really, I would love to come back and brainstorm with you guys. And we really need to bring back to you that when we kind of have a skeleton of this, and we're looking for you to make recommendations to the Planning Commission. And I think, in fact, this might be worthy of a joint Planning Commission, Community Engagement Commission meeting. And this is just the foundational piece. One of the things that I will say is a well-done public engagement plan is going to evolve through the process, and we're going to add to it and whatever. And that's why we have the engagement summary at the end of the process. And anyhow, so that is a big piece of it. And again, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the engagement in this process. I'm not going to dig a lot into the population, housing, and community services other than it's an iterative process. We have a draft of the population allocation, a first cut that's just based on trend lines. We then have to take that, go back as all the communities are going back and doing a land quantity analysis, a land capacity analysis to figure out how much land they have left and if they can support that population. And we will come back together and then do a second iteration because as we face build out, we may not be able to meet the target population that we have. Even when we add all of the different housing types that we now have to include in this analysis, all the ADUs that we'll have to account for, those sorts of things. And so this is a big piece, but that population and housing piece is going to drive your land use, it's going to drive your transportation, it's going to affect, and also the climate resiliency piece. So it's going to affect virtually everything else in the comp plan. And that's why it's such an important piece. As I said, we will have to deal with this housing. We have to figure out that we have plans and policies and development code regulations that will support the housing needs that we have, and we will be given an allocation for everything from emergency housing all the way up to, or all the way down to low income supportive housing, those sorts of things. And by the way, one of the things that is really loads of fun with this is that Commerce Department is literally building the plane as they're flying it. So we don't have all the guidance documents even out yet. And so this work program that you have in front of you is a very drafty draft one, because I don't know for sure when we're going to get to a final population and housing number, because that's outside of our control. That really sits with the county commissioners ultimately, but we're working hard to try and push them in that direction. The other thing is that we don't have all the guidance yet. So climate resiliency, I wanted to talk about this just a little bit because we did get a pretty good sized grant to do this. And we're working with Parametrics, who actually just merged with another firm that actually specializes in this stuff. So that's pretty exciting. And they have done some of this work on the west side. So as some of you know, there are communities on the west side that have their comp plans due in 2024. There are some, King County and some others, that have already done some of this climate resiliency planning. And these consultants were at the table. A big piece of this is going to be community and stakeholder engagement. Now they are responsible for writing the public engagement plan for the climate resiliency piece because of the specialized nature of it. We'll be bringing drafts to you, brainstorming this with you, getting your feedback, getting the planning commission's feedback. One of the things, because that's a very early task of the consultants and we're just about to kick off that project. And because they have done this in a way that has been very effective in terms of identifying different stakeholders and whatnot, I would like to take their public engagement plan and use it as a template in terms of the organization. Now it's going to look different, and in fact, as you'll see, there's a number of those topics that I identified as having a pretty big public engagement component. There'll be a section in the public engagement plan for each of these. And the climate resiliency, my intent is that is just a chapter, if you will, in the public engagement plan, and that we'll have similar ones for housing, that we'll have similar ones for transportation, we'll have similar ones for parks, for the parks plan, because we're a small community, and so probably a lot of the stakeholders are the same, but there may be stakeholder groups or agencies that are different in the different categories, and or exterior agencies that have something to give to that. So anyhow, long story short is I wanted to point this out to you. These are the elements of the climate resiliency chapter. These are the things that are the task orders that we've actually, or the tasks that we've actually identified in the scope of our grant and in the scope of our contract with the consultant. But the public engagement piece, I wanted to just let you know, that's probably going to be coming forward relatively quickly. And again, you guys are the public engagement, experts for the city of Liberty Lake. So I want to make sure that you guys are helping to inform this. And that you are helping to guide this. And, anyhow, land use, you know what's interesting about land use? When you talk about a comp plan, everybody thinks that the land use map is the comp plan, right? In this particular case, other things are going to be driving our land use. And by the time we get to it, we will have to update the, land use goals and policies and the land use descriptions. We will have to update the land use map, but and add in the urban growth areas. But most of the heavy lifting will be done in other chapters to get to this piece. This will be an outcome of the other work. For transportation, as I mentioned, we will be updating our network analysis, and we'll be looking at capital improvement projects, goals, implementation plan. I did want to point out that at the end of the process, after we adopt the comp plan, one of the implementation things that we'll be looking at is updating the Harvard Road mitigation plan based upon that 20-year build-out analysis. This, as I said, is a big lift, and we're considering hiring a consultant to do this just because staff is right now spread pretty thin, even with the new staff that we've brought on board and that we're hoping to bring on. So again, we need to do public engagement, and that's a different targeted kind of public engagement also, which is again why I separated it out. It'll be a big part of that as well. Inventory and needs assessment, review of goals and policies, and developing the Parks Master Plan and Capital Improvement Plan. One of the things that the Parks and Arts Commission has done just a phenomenal job on their public art, and that section really needs to be added to it. And the other thing is we've just hired a recreation coordinator. The strategic plan has really stressed recreation as a priority for the community, and the council is looking to invest in this. So we want to make sure that we're addressing kind of the vision for the recreation plan in this comp plan. And again, that will be driven. You'll note that you are stakeholders in that, and Parks and Art are stakeholders. And in fact, the thought is that they will be actually leading that process with support from planning staff and, of course, the director. Cultural and historic is really, history is history, so we do need to update it, but that'll be one of our lighter lifts. Economic development, actually the next three are more about coordinating with and getting input from the agencies that we work with on this. So economic development is more about coordinating with GSI, visit Spokane Valley Chamber, and Mark is willing to lead this one. So thank you, Mark.
Looking forward to it.
Utility and essential public facilities. Again, one of the biggest parts of this is that we need to engage our utility providers, and that's Avista. It's TransCanada Energy, which is the gas pipeline that cuts a swath through our city. It's Consolidated Irrigation, Spokane Environmental Services, and Liberty Lake Police Department and Spokane Valley Fire District, because they are essential public facility stakeholders. And then the last piece is the 20-year capital facilities plan. I think that this one is, again, the big news is that we're going to really try and do this build out analysis and try and have that roadmap. And I think that will help us in a big way. It also needs to be, when we do this, we're also going to have a financial plan that goes with it, and we will have to make certain that it is fiscally constrained, i.e. what that means is that we don't just shoot for the moon. We can have, as we do in the capital facilities plan, a list of unfunded projects. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to show that we have a plan for how we're going to pay for the infrastructure and facilities that the community needs and wants. And then implementation plan. This is new for us. We don't have an implementation plan in our comp plan now, but We will be, one of the new changes to the comp plan is that we now have to do an implementation, or we have to do an implementation assessment 5 years after the comp plan. It used to be that we did these updates every 8 years. Now we're gonna do them every 10 years, but we have to look at, assess our implementation of those plans and policies. By having an implementation plan, I'm setting the table for future planners. I'll be retired by then, but future planners to kind of assess where they're at. And again, looking at housing targets, level of service targets for like parks, TV, transportation, those sorts of things, development code updates, and there will be a lot of them. There will be a lot of them following this. There's a 6-month period. There's a whole bunch that have to be done within 6 months of adoption of this. And then there's others that are going to be more coming out of the goals and policies that we have identified in the comp plan. And then the additional studies and plans, and the example would be like Harvard Road impact fee. So I wanted you to have the big picture because I wanted you to understand that this is going to require early and continuous engagement with you guys as well as with the community. And so some of the key roles that I see potentially that if you're willing to help us paint our fence, some of the key roles that I see for this is helping with really define the public and tribal engagement plan, population and housing public education. And I call it public education because the answer to this question is going to be reflected. How we do it is for us to figure out, but what we have to do is going to be defined for us. And so that's kind of an interesting spin on that. The climate resiliency engagement, again, there's a big engagement component with that. And when we talk about climate resiliency, here's the thing. The thing is that the mitigation piece, it has to do with reducing vehicle miles traveled. And a lot of what we already do, the policies we already have related to our multimodal community, absolutely work towards those. Working with STA on transit routes and alternative transportation, all those things are good. In terms of resiliency piece, we would be looking at potentially really enhancing. So we have a hazard mitigation plan that the City of Liberty Lake has an annex to, and it basically, but it defers to the sheriff as the incident commander and evacuation and whatnot. One of the things that, as we look at the potential for the potential risks around wildfires, we may decide that we really want to update our hazard mitigation plan and really come up with much stronger mitigation strategies and stronger evacuation plans, really kind of take on the responsibility for our community and really make certain that we have plans that are going to be effective if we're ever faced with that situation. The other thing that we will be looking at is there an effect as we deal with more and more extreme weather conditions? Are we looking at changing like what our design your storm is? Will it affect our flood plains? You know, so we have our right now the floodplains are based on a 100-year storm. The problem is that we've had probably 400 or 500-year storms in less than a decade. And so are we really where we need to be? And those are the sort of conversations that are happening on a much larger scale than just Liberty Lake. But those are things that we need to consider and how that impacts our development code. Again, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, I think that is going to require huge community engagement. And I'm hoping that you guys are open and willing to be at the table and really help promote these. And the 20-year capital facilities plan, I really think that that's important because we get the buy-in of the entire community. So there's a lot of big public engagement pieces to this comp plan. And we would love to have you really digging into this and helping us paint that fence. Planning Commission is going to be focused on going through the technical analyses and whatnot, and they're going to have to kind of finalize the chapters and make the recommendations. They will have the meetings and their workshops all along. There will be specific hearings, etc. But even beyond the community open houses and whatnot, we really want to find a way to make certain that every citizen in the city of Liberty Lake has had an opportunity to engage in this process somehow and let their thoughts be known. And I think that is the heart and soul of a comprehensive plan, is making sure that it is not the technicians, the planner's document, it is the community's document. And so I think you guys are perfect for it. And I just wanted to suggest maybe that several kind of next steps, and you may have some other ideas about what they might be. But one of the next steps is really, I'd love to come back here and just whiteboard with you guys engagement strategies for this. And there may be different strategies for different aspects of this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and just kind of brainstorm it and kind of start to rough out what engagement strategies we might want to see in this public engagement plan. We also really want to and need your input and feedback on the draft climate resiliency public and tribal engagement plan. And I think that like I said, I really see that as an opportunity. These guys work all over the country. I'd love to see what they come up with, and then let's see how we can build on that for our other chapter, the other aspects of our comprehensive plan. And if you are open to it, I think it would be wonderful at some point to schedule a joint planning commission, CEC commission meeting regarding the comp plan's engagement processes. So that was really what I wanted to share with you. And I hope that you will invite me back, that you will let me come back, and really, I hope that you're open to helping us paint this fence, because it's a big fence.
Thanks, Lisa. So I'm going to open it up for discussion between us, the CEC. I'll just say that, of course, I'm a planner. I am, yeah, we want to help you paint the fence. And the next steps that you put up there, I think, are very sound. We would invite you so much back, and get the flip chart of the whiteboard, and let's start moving toward those efforts that will help you.
Awesome.
But open it up for everybody else.
Yeah, your possible next steps are, I think, what we would say are the same next steps from our side of things. And I think the big thing is finding out what it is we have to do, and then we're happy to jump on board and help in all the ways we can. It's exciting.
Thanks. Yeah. Anybody else?
No. I feel a little bit like I've been hit with a fire hose,
Okay.
which I'm excited.
By the way, I know that is what it feels like, that, and it was kind of my intent. I wanted you to see the big picture, because we're in it for the long haul here. This is a 2.5 year process.
And I think that's really important to point out, Lisa, that I think that, especially those that haven't been involved in comp plans, that this is a very long process. It's sort of daunting in some ways,
But again, I
but
mean,
it's exciting.
how do you eat an entire elephant? One bite at a time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Aaron, any questions, comments?
Yeah. Anybody else?
No. From my end, sounded great.
One?
I'm sorry, I came in the middle, so I
Okay.
really didn't.
Did I overwhelm you with it?
Yeah, so far I am, yes. Very much. No, thank you. And like you said, us meeting up with the planning commission, we have talked in the past about meeting up with all the other commissions, so that's right up our alley, so. But I do have a question.
Yes.
20-year plan, 20-year capital fiscal plan, okay?
Yes.
Facility plan. How often is that reviewed? Every
So-
20 years?
No, so we will do a 6-year plan every
Okay.
single year. We'll continue to do our 6-year plan.
I know
This
about
is-
that, yeah,
Right,
okay.
so this is really trying to look out into the future and say, okay, what do we need to do as we build out our city? What are the needs that we have, whether facilities wise, parks wise, transportation wise? And just really painting a picture of where we need to go. If we don't know where we're gonna go, how can we fiscally plan to get there? And again, we look at it in 6-year chunks, and I think, the city does a really good job of planning out the next 6 years. But if we don't look at our build out's gonna happen in this 20 years. If we don't look at it from a build out perspective, we may get to close to build out and say, we really needed another park. And the opportunity is no longer there.
Okay. I guess I'm just excited to see the templates and what work the other counties and other parts of the state have done already. So I guess just as my own homework, I'm looking forward to seeing kind of whether, we end up staying on that track or going in a different direction. I just want to see what that has already happened and done. So I'm looking forward to that too.
And I would be more than happy to, I will send it to David and he can send it out to all of you. He's got your distribution list. There is a link on the Washington State Department of Commerce website that has all sorts of guidance documents. It has all sorts of information, and you can kind of see who's doing what. They have good examples of things that others have done. And so yeah, I'd love to send that to you, and you can research away.
Thanks.
Yeah, they have a lot of documents to do. So when we do the brainstorming session, Lisa, do you think that we could do it here at a regularly scheduled meeting, or we could just have a special workshop and probably just focus?
I'm open to whatever works for the commission. I will make whatever works for you, I will make work for me.
Okay, so we can discuss that and see
Sure. I would
if it's worthy of it,
I think it's gonna probably have to be, just based
I
on
can do it in a regular meeting,
Yeah.
it'd have to be off.
just what's already on our plan so far.
Okay, so we'll talk about that, and sounds like if Aaron is up there too, it sounds like just a special focus workshop meeting where we just brainstorm this.
Sweet. I love it. And, just so you know, I'm off the first 2 weeks in April, so I'll have to be after that.
I think we can have some fun.
Yeah, I
I'm going to Tennessee I'm going to be staying with my teenage granddaughters. So that'll be a lot of fun, yeah, so.
Good.
Well, my
That's
daughter
great.
goes to Italy for her 40th birthday.
Oh. Good. Have a
But I'll
great
get a t-shirt.
vacation. Okay. So that's what we'll do, and we'll figure out some dates and have a real focused workshop with you, and then by that time, we will be able to have studied some of the documents on CCAD, or excuse me.
And take the work program with a grain of salt. I had to have a roadmap, but the timelines and there may be more to add to it. The timelines may change, that sort of thing, but it was really just trying to be able to communicate to everyone what we have to cover in the next 2 years.
Yeah, yes, it is a lot. It's almost phenomenal.
Anyhow, well, thank you all.
Lisa, would you need
Thank
to,
you.
would you need to have this group possibly have a workshop prior to their next meeting, which is around April 23rd, something like that,
Well, I
21st?
think
She said she's on vacation. for
she's on vacation for the first 2 weeks. so-
But would you need something before that meeting? Because then their next meeting is, third Wednesday.
Not necessarily, it's up to this commission. I will be back in the office on the 14th.
We can do it in May.
Or the 15th, excuse me.
So our next meeting is April 17th.
I think this is gonna be a May.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be May then.
And we're just getting geared up, and I'm just doing kickoff meetings with the climate resiliency contractor and whatnot. And so I wouldn't necessarily, I might have more to share with you about where we are
Yeah.
if we did it in May.
Okay,
And I know you want us early, but I think the more you know what you actually have to do and can use us for, the better.
Absolutely.
yeah, we're really, okay, I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank
you
all very much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, moving forward. Mark has a presentation. He actually has 3 presentations.
Thank you, Robin. And by presentations, I'm just gonna be talking. I don't have anything to present overhead, but, so first couple of these, and I'll just take these in order, and, as I go through, interject questions where they come up, and we can talk through. Cause these are, the first 2 of these are concepts, right? So they're not something that are fully fleshed out. That's the purpose of the discussion here in part. So if you remember the last city council meeting, it was after the community engagement workshop, where we had a 7 o'clock workshop where we were talking about the proposed Transparency Act that council has been considering. And through that discussion, there was some, recommendations or suggestions about hosting some kind of event to bring the public into the conversation. And so as that discussion unfolded, it became kind of semi-clarified that we were looking at kind of a town hall style community discussion to get the public's input as to what they may want to see with respect to things that, from a governance perspective, as city council does its business to govern, and the boards and commissions do their business to govern, what the public wants to see with respect to transparency. And so that is the objective, right? And so the question is, and they put a June 1st target on that for coming back and providing some recommendations, or at least having some ideas about what that may look like. And so the question for the commission is, given that you're meeting once a month, this may be another opportunity to use the framework to appoint a committee that would then go out and plan essentially a town hall style public engagement to get the public's input on proposals that may or may not wind up in this Transparency Act. But at least to get the public input as to some things that they may be concerned about, want to see the government and its city council and boards and commissions do more of, less of, better, worse, those kinds of things. And so that's the objective on this first item. And so with that, I would turn it back over to the chair and ask for there to be some discussion and ideation on this one.
Okay. Thank you. So I listened to that. David gave us a certain segment to listen to help to update and bring this at least to an understanding, you know, what they discussed that night. So this would be, okay, this is just so we agree, but I think it's a great opportunity to use Community Engagement Commission and to be able to provide some type of either guidelines, recommendations. I think that this is a large part of what we're here for. For the ordinance. So town hall meeting and looking at their major key key things for the transparency. And one of the elements was, and I looked at that, was location. How would this be set up? What would format look like? And trying to get the CEC sort of their perspective.
And one of the things that occurred to me first when the topic was introduced was we already expend a fair amount of energy and creativity in making everything we do available so that people can participate in real time, or they can go back and listen to a meeting and hear what was said and comment or come to the next meeting. And I'm sure there are other things, but I'm also sure that the number of people who actually take advantage of that is exceedingly small and repetitive. And by that I mean often cranks. So as it will be one thing to plan a very good, very fine meeting in a location that accommodates a large group of people. It will be quite another to get them to show up. And I just think that I think it's important that we do it. But I encourage us to think about what is already happening, how we can raise awareness about that, and sort of catalyze people into saying, this isn't working at all, or I like this very much. Thanks for telling me about it. I'm glad to know it. And here's some more ideas. I think it just speaks to the heart of why the commission exists, and sort of blasting people out of their own narrow awareness into a broader one is always a huge challenge.
So I think the night of the meeting, the council meeting, this goes to Mark McElroy, I think you were wanting to plan a town hall meeting for approximately 100. We didn't think we could make it fit this in the city council here at city. Is that correct? Or did I misunderstand?
Well, anytime you have a town hall, you want to, accommodate anyone who would show up. But and usually, to Bill's point, you've got for those kinds of things, depending on some other circumstances, when it is, what time it is, what else is going on, more or less people attracted to that kind of event. And so you want to make sure that you can accommodate everyone who shows up. And I would say on an outside estimate, a high-end estimate, you're looking at no more than 100. So you want to plan for 100 to be there. You're probably not going to get 100, but you want to accommodate that number so that if you do have a high turnout, you can accommodate them. And so if that number showed up, we clearly couldn't host it here. Yeah. And so we would need to find some alternative location, which probably would lead to a better conversation anyway. When you get out from City Hall to have conversations about the government, it tends to be more authentic, more interactive. People are more open to have the dialogue. And so that would be the recommendation.
And I think so too.
I think there's a real an opportunity for us to figure out how to brand this meeting, how to create some sense of excitement and enthusiasm around it. I think that is a huge part of what we could bring to this. So, first of all, figuring out how we want to brand it. I can't think of a better phrase than that. And then how do we get that in front of people? Are we going to do a mailer? Would that be one of our mailers?
Well, I'll look over here. Yeah, there's Aaron. You still on Zoom and someone or Mark?
I just, for me, the idea that a town hall often is around sort of a hot button issue, right? And that brings people for that issue. There's the other route of more of an open house style event where whether it's, meet the planning commission, meet the CEC, and everybody's got their little space and their little moment. The academy has an area, etc., or a program that has the same sort of idea, and it is a start to finish, meet your so-and-sos, something like that. I'm just wondering if we, transparency, that's in the spirit of transparency. So whether it's bringing that in as part of it, or if that's the overarching thing. I don't know. I think when you talk about excitement, I think you're either passionate about something that is gonna be voted on, and that's why you show up, or you don't know and you just wanna come to the party. So to me, I lean more in the open house version of that. But I don't know, I mean, that's just immediate thoughts.
Rings a bell with me.
Yeah, I agree with Summer, because I think it gives an opportunity for all three commissions to have a chance to, engage with the community. And I think the perfect location would probably be the Rotary Room over at Trailhead. You know, if we were looking for a destination to have it. And, the key thing would be is to get people there. There have to be a reason for it. And this is where we would have, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, go.
That may lead us to a setting where instead of having the city council arrayed, you know, with microphones like this and an audience, we do occasionally have really insightful conversations, one-on-one or with a small group, 2 or 3, at the farmer's market.
Sure.
So if it did take an open house kind of feel, one of the topics that we could either post, come here to talk about that, or just with groups of, for example, members of the city council in groups of 2 or 3, to have conversations, probably standing with people and ask questions about that. There is an argument that would suggest we might get more feedback and more thoughtful feedback than if we were calling on people in an audience and each person speaking.
No, I was thinking more of like you were just saying, an open house to where they come to, you have a small group, you know, you have the CEC here, you have the city council here, you have the planning commission here, et cetera, and people come to you, you know, like at the farmer's market, they come to us at the booth, or we go to them, or it wouldn't be a setting like this. No, I wouldn't.
Exactly.
I wouldn't see a setting like, it'd be more, I would say it'd be more casual. You know, this is too stringent here. It would have to be more casual. Because, you know, people are coming in, they wanna get informed. They wanna, you know, the reason why they're there is, once we come up for, we've gotta think of a reason why we want them there. Not just to come meet the CEC or the commission or something. There's gotta be a basis of why we want them to come. And that's what we need to come up with.
Well, for me to just play both sides.
Yes, go for it.
You know, if we were to do the show on the road, which was presented by the mayor, I think, to do a on to or whatever version of the meeting, that could certainly be a 2-part sort of thing. You show up for this, you have the other part of it, right? I mean, that's, you know, that is the event that draws you, and maybe there's a sort of open house element to that as well.
Afterwards.
Yeah, if, you know, because people do show up for the meetings, and I think a special meeting somewhere else would bring some people in, especially if there's specific topics that the agenda is put out there and people wanna talk. I don't know. I could see a combination of both.
Sure.
Eric, are you still online? Oh, yeah, you're up there.
I can't.
I've been listening, and I think that
Eric.
what I would lean towards all and focusing on creating a softer environment, you know, like that open house style that you mentioned, Summer. I think that makes more sense than anything else, but it's definitely got to be some sort of a draw to get people there. So the marketing language is probably more important than anything else to get people to actually show up.
Okay. So the Rotary, like, I don't know what the capacity is for the Rotary.
It's 100.
Oh, okay. And they have, I know that they have, when I was in there, they have all of the technical equipment
Oh, yeah.
that's needed and everything. So If we did, would that be an acceptable location, Mark McAvoy?
So my suggestion is that, you use the opportunity to use the framework and appoint a committee to make all of those, to go through all of those contingencies and come up with some options based upon, kind of the scope. And then that gives them the opportunity to meet outside of the commission meetings. And then at the next commission meeting, the committee can come back and brief the entire commission, and then you can make some,
For recommendations?
or make some, suggestions to modify or, so you've got, in other words, you've got time before June 1st to go through a couple of iterations, so you can really refine and come up with the best idea.
Okay. So, committee-wise, who would like to be on that committee? Oh, Bill.
I'd be happy to.
Mark? Mark?
I've got a lot of stuff on my plate right now. I've got
Okay,
well, I'm just being upfront with you. I've got the Winter Glow Golf Tournament, just in the planning stage of that.
I'll do it. Oh.
But I'll assist anyway anyone wants.
I love, we're fighting, we're doing things, I love. it.
No, you guys fight it. Go.
Okay, Bill? Summer. Okay.
Okay, Bill, we're planning a party.
Dream team, yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready. Because I think that, you had a good idea of doing open house, something a little bit less formal, but, and you had some great ideas there. And I think that as you come out and work it out with, like really good ideas, I think you'll be able to do that.
Sounds good.
Okay, looking forward to it. So our subcommittee, Summer Darrell, Bill Norman,
The Dara Norman team.
The Darren Norman team.
yes. Okay,
We'd be there at least, Mark, we show up.
and then, so that's,
Come to our party.
Yeah.
that'll be on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
That's all okay, Mark? That, I think,
Perfect.
perfect, okay. City Council Community Conversations Proposal.
Was
So-
that everything in the form? Do you have a couple?
I do, I've got a couple more coming down.
Oh, you.
She was introduced.
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Was that my cue?
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, you're on, Mark.
All right, so this is similar, but not altogether identical as the thing we just talked about. So this is also came out of the March 5th discussion, and then it was followed up by some offline communication about kind of what the goal of this item is and what the purpose it will serve going forward. And if you'll recall, there was some discussion during the March 5th 7 p.m. workshop about having kind of roving opportunities to have interaction with council members in different settings. And so what does that look like? How often does that occur? There were some suggestions about maybe a quarterly opportunity to have that style of get together. And so same as before, where you would want to bring forward some recommendations to the city council about what that may look like, is the ask. A little bit shorter deadline on this one. They're looking for a May 1st return. And I'm saying May 1st and June 1st as targets, right? They don't meet on either of those dates. So, but generally May 1st. And so the other piece of this is a opportunity to create some forums for there to be smaller gatherings of community members without council members per se, to have what I'm calling here community conversations. So these are conversations like Summer mentioned before in the discussion about people who are interested in something, whatever that something is, and they want to get together and talk about it and have reasonable certainty that the outcomes of those conversations will go somewhere and something will be done with them. And so whatever that looks like, there's several different methods out there that produce various levels of success and, you know, draw people and attract people for different reasons. But they're all designed to provide these forums for smaller groups to get together and have meaningful, facilitated, right, moderated conversations about important topics to the community, to the organization, to the club, whatever it is their focus. In this case, it would be the city, right? So this could be anything. This could be about capital projects. This could be about law enforcement. This could be about tax rates. This could be about anything that the group of folks that came together wanted to talk about. And so the concept would be having the Community Engagement Commission kind of build the framework of whatever that forum was going to be. And so that's separate from the traveling, meet with your council member quarterly thing, related, because it's engagement in a different way to get conversation started with meaningful subjects. And so those two things are also opportunities for the commission to kind of put some thought into how those would look, how they would be executed, what time frames we're talking about, you know, the cadence and all of that. And so again, you could make the decision to put these two items under the same committee that you just created. You could create a different committee to look at these separately. That you know, you have a capacity issue with a two-person committee with things that are, I'm going to say, due for the purpose of the conversation May 1st and June 1st. So that's a consideration. But really, at this point, I'm going to kick that back now to the commission to have a conversation like you had on the previous item.
Okay, so we're looking for discussion.
I don't see a difference. The only thing I see the difference is, excuse me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I see a lot of duplication here. The only thing I see different with the second one that was brought up is it's a smaller avenue, smaller group of people. It could happen. I don't know. I just think we're doubling the work.
Is that something that
I'm happy to add that as a component, maybe what a different aspect of this looks like besides the main event. And then if we decide, which I have a feeling we'll meet pretty soon about this.
Yep.
We'll have to, but like, at that point, I think if we need to bring it back and do some more work on it separately from us, I think we could do it that way, maybe.
Yeah.
And just because Cynthia's not here, I'm gonna throw out that, she probably might say something like, you know, compiling a list of groups and clubs and things that we could engage with. Maybe we should just on potentially her behalf, think about that, think outside of the box, whatever we're thinking about, and maybe give anyone a little bit of homework to bring a few groups or clubs we might not be thinking of, or, you know, the senior citizens, et cetera, whatever that looks like, so we can add that to our mix.
you feel comfortable then and adding that to what?
Plus, I think you could also approach it by neighborhoods.
Right, exactly.
There are ways to think about it.
Right.
Sure.
Okay, because it's not.
I think we ought to look at both of them as one, as, you know, two separate, but as under the same umbrella. Because they'll probably be, you know, attracted that way.
I've got a clarification question. When you, Summer, said compile a list of groups and clubs they could engage with, are you talking about city council being they?
No, us. I'm just doing the Cynthia version of things, because she likes homework and groups. And it's great, I mean, it's great. We all have some different networks that we could be thinking about.
Just have to do homework.
So then with summer, you guys will be busy, man.
So if I can add just a couple of words of clarification before we move on to the next item. The item number one, regardless of what you come up with in terms of the method, the subject matter at that particular event, whatever it's going to be, is specifically about forming the Transparency Act that has been proposed.
Right.
So that is a one-time thing. You're gonna gather, you have an event that gathers input. That input is provided to council on that topic. The other may be an ongoing thing on subjects yet undefined
Okay,
or yet defined.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just keep that in.
Sure,
okay. That makes sense.
still be in the spirit of that, so it should be,
Sure.
I think we're good.
So are we still looking at Somerville and the subcommittee for both?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll motion them together.
Thing, just for consideration, on the second bullet, the town hall piece makes sense because you've got a general topic that you bring people together for. The second one, the only little red flag that pops up is, at least in my mind, is how do you prevent it, especially during political seasons, not having it turn into campaign stumps for council members. So, intent is probably not that. I can see into that. So while I appreciate the council members wanting to engage with the public, which is important, I think a framework or guideline needs to be put in place prior to that, similar to the same conversation that was had about the farmers market tent, not having council members in there who were running for office. So I think that's just a point of consideration for these types of things, that it's not turning into a campaign stop for anybody, whether it's a council member, whether it's mayor, whether it's a house rep. I mean, it doesn't matter who shows up. I mean, it's if it's going to be done in intentions and without the potential of it having it slip the other direction and turning into what would have the true appearance of a campaign stop that's then supported by either a commission, the city management, city leadership, or however it ends up, could it end up getting characterized. So that's the only piece of on number 2, I'd be a little hesitant about how much to really proceed on that without having some strategic bumpers in place of what's acceptable and what's not.
Everybody good? Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, very good point. Those are some of the guidelines that we would have to come up with now.
Yeah.
Okay. Valid points.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for that.
Think about that, committee.
You ready to go into the community satisfaction survey and next steps?
All right, so just as we've talked about for a while now and have briefed council on several different occasions, we said that we were going to come back during the March meeting and provide the commission an update and get some feedback on what the preference is for going forward and either continuing to invest and trying to get more response or not. And so a couple of quick pieces of information before we have that conversation. At this point in time, and as you'll recall, we had a sample size of 660, right? And we've talked about that on a couple of occasions. At this point in time, we have a little over 160 responses, and I'm not sure what that percentage is. Not great, but it's 160 plus responses. And so if we're looking at the investment up to this point for this particular project, we have a total expenditure of $3,926. Now $725 of that was purchasing the list of all of the residential addresses in the city. So that was going to have to be done anyway, contemplating the mail outs that the budget was, built for. And so that would, you'll want to spread that across all of your mailings, because you'll be able to use that multiple times. But regardless, the expenditure to date is $3,926. So when you look at that on a per response basis, it's a little over $24, which is really, 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 really expensive.
Yeah.
For a response. And so, the last piece of, contact that was made with the thus far non-respondents was on February 26th. We mailed out a 4x6 card, and that is by far the most economical piece of this. Because at that time, I want to say we mailed out 520 or something. And that cost was $365. And so that, again, is by far the most economical piece of this. So, we could do that again for a fewer number, which means the cost is going to be probably in the neighborhood of $320. Or we can say we've invested enough in this project. We have the responses that we're going to get, and we're going to now start formulating results and reporting those results out. That really is the question at this point.
I got one question.
Yeah.
Okay, on the 27th, you mailed out the reminder, correct?
26.
Okay, 26, 27. Between that time and now, how many responses did we get?
It's approximately 30 this was based on online responses that were submitted between that date and last week.
So we got 30 responses from the second. Honestly, I think we're throwing bad money towards 30 more responses.
And I just wanted to make sure, you said that was $365
for that number of mailings. Yeah. So it would be
Yes.
incrementally less because we got 30 something responses.
So we'd be putting out another
$300.
$300 and.
Yeah, it would be probably 320-ish, somewhere in there.
I'll throw out a couple other numbers for you. The total number of responses, both mailed in and online, we're about pretty much exactly, maybe slightly more than 1/4 of the total original population size has responded. And as far as total number of households, it's approximately 3.5% of the city of Liberty Lakes households have responded.
Okay. Mark, okay, you.
I look at it this way. I know 2 people that got the survey, okay? Both of them told me they haven't turned them in yet. And the reason is they don't have time. Okay, they did get the second response. Honey, we need to do this. No, I don't have time now. So, I just hate to say this, but I think, I don't want to be negative, but I think the survey was too long for people to complete. I was one of the guinea pigs, and I did it very thorough, and it took me 35 minutes to complete the survey. I don't think people with the lifestyles that they have today have that time to sit down and fill out a survey to take 35 minutes to do it. And where the time got in, it wasn't the answering the multiple choice, it was the essay questions. Those essay questions that were asked made you think. At least it did with Karen and I when we took it. It made you think, because you couldn't just answer, yeah, okay, 15 or whatever. You know, you had to actually explain why you answered that question. And I assume that was the reason for the survey. My feeling is that if we're going to do something like this in the future, which I think it's grand, I think it's great, but I think what we should have done with this one was divided it into 3 sections and send it out in 3 separate surveys. Granted, it would have taken us longer to get our results, but I feel we would have hit the number that we wanted to obtain in order to get the results that we were looking for.
Mark, can I jump in here? So our house household was one of the households that randomly got selected for the survey. So I wasn't a guinea pig. We got the actual survey. And to be totally honest, I got it. I looked at it and I had the same reaction, Mark, you just described.
Okay, have a confession.
And so
Aaron's still talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Aaron.
Aaron, go ahead.
Survey, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. It was a month later before I took the time to finally, and had the time to finally do it. And it took me 15, 20, 25 minutes, somewhere in that range of completing the survey. And I will agree with Mark. I think the survey, while the questions are valid and the information can be helpful, there was so much in there. I don't think it was too big. I think you could have gotten more meaningful information with asking half of the amount of questions than what you did, and giving them half of the number of options that were listed. It was just too extensive. And I know City Council wanted it structured and gave feedback in a certain direction, but the unfortunate nature is this is the response rate you're going to get when it takes anybody too long to do. They're going to see the mailer and it's 3 or 4 pages for them to complete. They're not going to do it. They're going to go online and scan the QR code, and they're going to, most people, and even myself, looked at it and going, okay, this is a lot. It's important for me as a citizen, and obviously as part of the commission, I want to provide, meaningful feedback. But most people, and we're seeing that based on the responses that have not come in, aren't going to take the time. It was too big. And I don't mean to be, critical of the survey, but it was too much. It should have been pared down. And I think that's a opportunity in the future to recognize that if you want to get meaningful information, it's not necessary to go into depth, and you can create it in a way that's still meaningful, still get you what you want, and help you make decisions, but without creating something that people aren't just going to respond to. And that's unfortunate.
Okay, I'll go next. So the household I live in, my husband received one. I was saying, yay, we got one, but he put it on the pile and he eventually did it. But I really nagged him to do it. I said, you need to do this. The city needs this information. Please sit down. And so I think because it was lengthy in nature, but then I asked him, I said, what do you think of the overall questions? He said they were actually good questions and meaningful. He said, it just took a long time, it seemed like, to do that. He said, I'm not saying that all of it was not relevant, but maybe it was just too much in one shot. So I asked him, I said, can you just give me, so I can bring this back to either city staff or the CDC? I don't know if that helps or not.
Could we give Robin the list of unresponded people, just have her nag those people door to door?
I did the 2020 census already. I have plenty of questions.
So obviously, and we talked all along about this being the initial run, right? Because the city's never done, it's never done anything quite like this, but it's been a while since it's done any kind of surveying of targeted samples, right? And so this was something that we were going to take and evaluate the results after it was over and make corrections and adjustments, because this is designed to be over the 5-year period of the strategic plan, so we can compare results year over year. Because ultimately, if you go back to the strategic plan and look at those key results, half of those are based on, or I should say, the measurement of those results are based upon this survey. And so, whether that means paring down some of the options, whether that means I don't know if I would recommend the three-part piece, because then we're talking about $12,000. And that seems like a non-starter. But you know, whatever that looks like for next year, and a lot of that, and I'll tell you honestly, I've looked at some of the responses just to kind of see what the breakouts are in certain categories, but I've not done a lot of evaluation, so I'm not sure what the result is going to say. And so I think a lot of the retooling is going to be based on what data we get. And so once we do that, you know, we'll have an opportunity. But I think from this conversation, what I'm hearing is that we don't want to invest any additional effort to get more response, because the diminishing returns aspect is more likely than not. And so what this means is that, and I've said this on a couple of different occasions in different briefings, the responses that we have, it's valid data. Those are actual responses, right? But with this return, we're not going to be able to say with any statistical significance that we can use these to predict anything. We're still going to use the data because it's valuable, valid data. So,
Mark, would you just remind me, how many did we send out?
we sent out 660.
And we got back 160 plus.
160 plus.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, is a little under 25%.
Yeah, it's 24.4.
So, and what did we think we would get?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, you're expecting to get 100%, right? And so because you set up a methodology with multiple touch points so that you can get as high of a response as that you can. But in order to give you an example, in order to get to an 80% confidence level, we would need about 340 responses. And to get to the 95% confidence level, we would need all 660.
I do think in relation to what both Mark and Aaron have said, I note that you can't buy anything online, you can't go to the doctor or the dentist, you can't have your car serviced, you can't do any of those things without then getting an invitation to participate in a survey.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's a discussion to be had also about not only the content of the survey, but how we set it up, given just the white noise of surveying that we all live in. And I don't know what that might be, but I wonder if that isn't a question to be thinking about for next time.
I would say any feedback, and again, you know, we've got now, what is this, March? So we've got essentially 8 months, right, to reflect and to apply, call them lessons learned, so that when we get ready for the next round, we're in a theoretically better position.
Yeah. And Aaron had a comment.
Yeah, and
The other piece that I think you take into account, Mark, is you're trying to figure out, you know, how to get to that target threshold to make it statistically relevant. Is you go, okay, we had 25% response rate. So if we know we're going to get a 20 to a 25% response rate, and it's probably going to decrease as you increase the number of mailers going out, the response rate is probably going to decrease percentage wise. You go, okay, we need to get to whatever that number was, 500 households responding. So we need to work backwards from that 500 response rate, knowing that we're only going to get 20% of the people to actually respond. So if we need 500 responses, we need X number of actual household mailers going out, versus going the other direction of saying I get 80 to 90% or 100% of people respond, because that's relevant and an easy way to do it. We know that's not happening. So if we can go the other direction and saying, yes, it's going to cost more, but you're actually going to get statistically relevant data by doing it that way. So if you've got, you know, how many, what are the number of households that we have here? Was it 4,000 households?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you've got 4,000 households, 20% of that is what, 800 households? So yeah, that means you're sending it to almost every household. But then you're actually getting statistically relevant data, back to your point, that the commission and others in the city can actually act on. It's going to cost more. I mean, obviously, you're doing a huge mailer to everybody, but you create a survey that is more streamlined and then work backwards in numbers. Instead, you actually need to be able to base the decisions off of for the city moving forward.
Right, so those are all good points, and those are the things I think Bill was talking about in terms of reevaluating, just as a point to consider. When you start changing, looking at sample versus population, the whole methodology changes. So you have to get more responses, and so the response is the key, regardless of which method you choose. You have to get a certain number of responses in order to be able to say that it's statistically significant. Again, that doesn't mean that the responses aren't valid that we've got. It just means that if you're using the data for predictive purposes, you're less able to do that. So all of that will go into preparation for the next round of this.
Okay. So I think getting back to the main question, we went around the loop here, is does the commission think that we should continue to do, it's the third mailer, right? And so we've all said we probably do not think that that's a good resource to go the third mailer. Is that correct? I want to get consensus on here, on that.
Well, using the last mailer as an example, it costs us an extra $30.
That's what.
So if it's gonna cost us $30 per response, then I think it's.
And we only get like 30 more responses or something,
Yeah.
so, it'll be few clear that we should,
I think we've exhausted.
we've exhausted
Yeah.
stuff.
I would say the only further push, if there was anything else, would be something that doesn't cost money, like a quick video saying, hey, we haven't thrown that away. You know, some version of that. That would be the level at which I would continue anything at this point.
Yeah, there's all kinds of non-cost options.
Right, but, and I would almost say one more of those, that's something in a different avenue. And I still kind of have a sense that if there's some, and I'm not pulling for a comedy sketch, but if there's some humor or there's some human aspect of the ask, I think that would help a lot. And whether that's coming from Chris or from somebody else, I don't know, but I think if there's a face to it in some way, that's our last and best chance to me. Because you're now accountable to a person or something, instead of just something sitting on your table. So that would be my thoughts. For someone else to do some work.
I stopped doing Facebook promotions for the last couple of weeks, just because I was curious to see what this mailer card would have done. I didn't want to interfere with that process.
Yeah, and see, to me,
I'm gonna jump back into that.
Yeah, and I think it's a little two-parter, right? I think it's, and I hope that over time we get used to and we trust this thing that shows up a little bit more, and it has to start somewhere.
So it occurs to me that the photograph that is in the strategic plan that has Aaron, Mark, Summer, Cynthia, and Bill in it, that sounds like a lineup for a sketch that can accomplish the objective that you just described.
Wow.
That may be tying it into the actual plan. So think about that.
So we'll publish in March.
You want me to manipulate mouths like a South Park video?
Yeah, the old, what was it, Jib Jab website? Yeah, get on that.
Okay. So what I need to ask, that this is, we had a taking out of for our meeting of information, that we've been discussing. Looking downward at 6 and 7 and then 8, is there anything that we could possibly table and continue and put on next month's agenda? So the 2024 work plan that I talk about, we can do that for next month's agenda. How about the takeaways from March 5th workshop with the city council? Do you think we could potentially put that on next month's agenda?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, C and D.
Or do they need to officially vote or just administratively do it?
No, they can just move.
Yeah, we don't, let's just move it.
It's over, David.
Farmers market, magnetic, an update on the binder, magnetic dry erase board. I think we can move that to next month's agenda.
Yep.
And then the geographic membership requirements. I think that's needed tonight
Yes,
to get it on city
I
council.
think it's a quick vote.
I think it's a quick vote, you know, it's what I presented to the city council
Right.
at the workshop.
Okay.
Is there any deviation after looking at it?
No.
Bill?
No, I thought it was well articulated and we were all in agreement.
Aaron?
Thumbs
Aaron?
up.
He's a thumbs up, I think.
Oh, you gave a thumbs up, okay. Robin? Okay,
So-
there's your vote.
Okay,
So,
Can you-
hold on, so what is the actual language that you're voting on?
Was
The original ordinance, it's on the ordinance, 277. The old ordinance has the mayor recommending that each area, there's 4 areas, have 2 positions. Okay?
Right.
it's a section 2B3.
Right.
Yeah.
We wanted to substitute new language from the existing 3 with revised language for 3.
So is there a document showing the change that you're voting on?
David's got it right there.
You've all got it.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Is that in the packet?
Should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
proposed revision to ordinance.
The proposed revision for ordinance 277,
Mhm.
section 2B3.
Okay, so.
That's it right there.
So this paragraph that says current phrasing is what is in the ordinance right now, I suspect. And then up above where it says proposed revision,
Yes.
so you're taking the whole paragraph and replacing it with a new paragraph.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. All right, so that's clear. So what I would do is you're gonna need to call, Robin, you're gonna need to call a formal vote on this document.
Okay.
So that this is what we put into the proposed new
Okay.
ordinance. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I have a motion made for the proposed revision to ordinance number 277, section 2.B.3. The mayor may recommend appointments for members based on the following areas. 1, north of I-90, 1 member, position 1. South of I-90 and west of Liberty Lake Road, 1 member, position 2. Number 3, south of I-90, east of Liberty Lake Road, and north of Mission, 1 member, position 3. 4, south of I-90, east of Liberty Lake Road, and south of Mission, 1 member, position 4. Number 5, 5 at-large members, positions 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. In the event the Community Engagement Commission moves to seek additional members up to the maximum number of members, such additions shall be appointed based upon these areas identified herein. That's our proposed revision.
I make a motion that we accept the proposed revision of ordinance 277, section 2B3.
And I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aaron?
Okay,
Any opposed? None. motion carries.
Okay, so based on that, what we're going to do now is you've got a recommendation that we will craft into a proposed new ordinance with this red line, which will be part of the agenda on April 9th as a first read.
Yeah,
So it will be ordinance 277 in its entirety, and the red line will include, imagine the current phrasing being stricken and the new stuff being in there. So that will be what goes to council, for them to, consider.
okay, yes. You want me to rephrase that?
No, I was just clarifying so that you, in terms of next steps,
Yeah,
that's the process. So it'll go through a first read, a second read, and then it'll be adopted.
okay. So with that, we're gonna table and continue those other items. And on number 8, are there any public comments? Okay, online or in the audience, without no other public comments? Is there anything else for the good of the order? If there's nothing else, meeting's adjourned.